Awesome. Well, hopefully everyone can see my screen okay, and you're not seeing the presenter mode.
Looks good, Robbie.
Perfect, thank you. So good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all. I have you on the bottom of my screen, so if I'm looking down, that's why. Welcome to our Community Champion Facilitation Development Bootcamp. As you all know, I am Robbie Nato, Senior Program Coordinator with the DRCHSD Community Care Coordination Team. I just have a couple things I want to run through. The Delta Regional Authority and the Health Resources Services Administration's Federal Office of Rural Health Policy have partnered to support the Delta Region Community Health Systems Development Program. The cooperative agreement with the federal office, the center administers the program and manages the provision of services to the selected hospitals and communities. Services are provided through technical assistance, which includes various assessments, on-site consultations, action planning, and coaching implementation of best practices and adoption of key transition strategies. Before we get started, I do have a couple housekeeping items to go through. Please connect your video feature, and to avoid any background noise, please remain muted for now. We also encourage the use of the phrase "I'm complete" to indicate when you are finished speaking. And if you have any technical issues today, feel free to reach out to me and I am happy to help. And then building a culture where difference is valued. The center is committed to DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and anti-racism. We create an environment that reflects the communities we live in and serve, a place where everyone feels accepted and empowered to be their full, authentic selves, and where everyone belongs. We do have a little bit more on our website about this if you are interested. And before we begin, I am actually going to launch a couple polls for us. So there should be 2 questions. See, we got some answers coming in.
Looks like you
and
have
center staff, you don't need to be taking this.
11 is what I have for account, Karen.
Okay, I'm still only seeing 10 on my side that have taken it.
And it looks like center staff is unable to take it, so I feel maybe we should be good to go.
Okay, sounds good.
Alrighty. And now I will hand it over to you, Leif.
All right, good morning, everyone. And get the next screen up here. All right, so welcome community champions, right? We've got our facilitation design plan for this week. This is session 1 of 2. So we're gonna get started with a check-in and introduction. So we're gonna have you go ahead and share your name, and then taking a look at all of the images that are on the screen there. Pick out a picture, one of those images that really catches your attention. We're gonna go around, we'll use our stacking method and hear from everyone. If we could go ahead and start with Becca, and then we'll go to Jamie, then Diane.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Becca Stanfield. I'm the Community Program Coordinator with the Center. And the picture that catches my attention is the one in the very center that looks like a really cute cafe, maybe somewhere in Europe. I'd love to have a cup of coffee there and just enjoy the sights. And I'm complete.
Thanks, Becca. Jamie, Diane, Donna.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jamie Goodpaster. I'm a community program specialist with the center. And I think the picture that catches my eye would be the top right corner of the little kid and the adult on the railroad tracks. I have a very similar picture of my husband and son when he was little, and my son is very into trains when he was little. So that's just, as we were talking earlier about feelings, that one kind of gets me. So.
Thank you, Jamie. Diane, Donna, Kimberly.
I'm Diane Blake with Spring Hill Medical Center.
Oh, you muted yourself, Diane.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Probably the bottom row, the middle, girl with sunglasses on and hot pink lips.
Right. Thank you, Diane. Donna, Kimberly, Gwendolyn.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Donna Davis. I'm a program specialist with the center. The image that captures my attention would be the rain coming down with the gentleman in the water. Just reminds me of childhood when I would go outside and play, invokes happy memories, and I just love the water. It seems cooling. I don't like the heat, so it seems like it'll be very refreshing. I'm complete.
Thank you, Donna. Kimberly, Gwendolyn, Megan.
Hi, I'm Kimberly. I'm with Allen Parish Community Healthcare in Kinder, Louisiana, and the bottom left catches my eye and stirs up a lot of emotion. It reminds me of a Catholic church. I'm very Catholic, and it resembles a lot of the Catholic churches down here. I'm complete.
Thank you, Kimberly, Gwendolyn, Megan, and Tangia.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Gwendolyn Glover. I am the community champion for Greene County Health Systems here in Utah, Alabama. And the picture that catches my eye the most is with whether female or male has their feet on the desk and the coffee and the phone and the remote relaxing by the fire. That is very relaxing just to see the fire. I love fireplaces. I have an electric one in my bedroom. I have an electric one in my spare bedroom. I have a big one in my living room, so I love it. Fireplaces and relaxing. And I'm complete.
Thank you, Gwendolyn. Megan, Tangia, Kathy.
Hi, I'm Megan. I'm with Wagner Medical. The one that catches my attention would probably be the top middle one. Just keep looking at it, seeing different pictures. It either looks like several different things. So I thought it was interesting.
Thank you, Megan. Tangia, Kathy, Rachel.
Good morning. My name is Tangia Corbin. I'm from Franklin Medical Center here in Winsboro, Louisiana. And the picture that catches my attention is the one with the feet prop with the fireside. I'm complete.
Thank you. We've got Kathy, Rachel, and Lanaya.
Hi, I'm Kathy Terry, and I'm with West Feliciana Hospital in St. Francisville, Louisiana. The picture that captures my attention is the top left-hand corner, the mosaic with all the different colors. Just kind of makes me happy when I look at all those colors.
Thanks, Kathy. Rachel, Lanaya, Sue Ellen. Is Rachel still here?
I'm here.
Oh, there we go.
This is Rachel Becknell from St. James Parish Hospital in Letcher, Louisiana. The picture that catches my attention is the bottom right with the mother and her 3 children. With Mother's Day coming on Sunday, it just made me smile when I looked at it. I have 3 kids, and it just looks so peaceful. They look so happy.
Thank you, Rachel. Lanaya, Sue Ellen, Tiffin.
I'm Lanaya. I'm with Cape Family Medical Clinic. The one that catches my eye is the one with the fireplace because it reminds me of Christmas, and I love Christmas. It's my favorite. And I'm complete.
Thank you, Lanaya. Sue Ellen, Tiffin, Kelly.
Hi, I'm Sue Ellen West, and the picture that captures my attention is in the top left corner. All these beautiful colors. My office is very colorful. I love colorful things.
Thank you. That was just Sue Ellen, correct? All right, Tiffin, Kelly, Robbie.
Hi, good morning. This is Tiffin Felkerson. I'm the community champion at Salem Memorial Hospital in Salem, Missouri. And the one that catches my eye is the one the top left, the mosaic. I don't know, it kind of lets me just go to looking at the different colors, kind of go to a meditative prayer state and just enjoying all the different colors.
Thank you, Tiffin. Kelly, Robbie, Karen.
I'm Kelly Brugan. I'm the community champion for Washington County Memorial Hospital. And the one that catches my eye is the trees and kind of the shape of the brain. I'm very much into neurodiversity advocacy. And so that one really spoke to me.
Thank you, Kelly, Robbie, Karen, Angie.
Thank you. As you know, I'm Robbie Nato, Senior Program Coordinator with the CCC team. The image that stands out to me is actually the bottom row middle, the teal lady with the sunglasses. Because teal is one of my favorite colors, any shades of blue. And then I also just really, really want summer, and I'm complete.
Thanks, Robbie. Karen, Angie.
Karen Lund, Senior Program Specialist with the Delta team, and I'm going with the bottom right. To me, it looks like 3 girls, and I have 3 girls, and honestly, if I didn't have my glasses on, it could be my family picture. Mine is my husband, so that's what caught my eye, and I'm complete.
Thank you, Karen. Angie.
I'm so torn because the bottom right is going to have to win out. That yard pretty much looks at what I'm seeing at my window, and with Mother's Day, as you know, I think Rachel said, is coming up, and so it just reminds me of spring and the lovely time that we're going to have this weekend, and no rain's going to happen, right? All right, I'm complete.
All right. And for those of you that don't know me yet, my name is Megan Jacobson. I am a team member, a trainer and facilitator with the Hue Life team, and I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, is where I'm joining you from, or just outside of the city, I should say. And for me, I am also the bottom right is the one that stood out for me because I also have 3 children and am very much looking forward to some fun outdoor time with them coming up this summer. So. Thank you all for sharing. As you all know, building a community amongst yourselves is something that's really important part of this journey that you've been going on together. So we like to take the time to have those check-ins. But more about our purpose of today. And this week, actually, all about facilitation design, right? We want to gain that understanding of what design means and how to ensure you show up fully prepared to deliver an engaging session that is inclusive for all participants. We have a couple of learning objectives today that you kind of got a sneak peek of during the poll, but could I get a volunteer, another voice, to read our learning objectives out for us?
I'll read it. Gain a deeper appreciation for the importance of having a clear understanding of the rational and experimental aims when designing a facilitation. Understand different types of thinking and how it is related to designing a facilitation. Gain practical hands-on experience in completing an intake form and applying the knowledge gained to develop a facilitator script to effectively lead the facilitation. And have a clear understanding of the homework assignment and what is expected.
Thank you, Gwendolyn. So I'll just pause and see if there are any questions about our objectives or what it is that we're here to do this week. All right, hearing none, let's take a look at our agenda. So for today, this is our first of 2 sessions this week. We're just talking over the context right now and finished up with our introductions, but we're going to take some time to review facilitation experience, reflections, concepts, best practices, and tips. We'll make sure that you get a break in here, and then we'll get into types of thinking and designing sessions and how they kind of go in hand in hand there. And then our intake design form introduction. So their center staff will be introducing that to you and kind of walking you through what that looks like. And then they're going to demonstrate what it looks like to use this form and go through this process when you're out there in your communities. And then we will close up with some just reflections from the day. When we come back together for part 2 on Thursday, we'll take just a brief couple of minutes to review the intake form that you're going to have that opportunity to see demonstrated for you today. And then you will have time to practice. So you're going to have about an hour to get into some small groups, and scenarios will be provided for you, or topics, and you'll get a chance to get in there and design a session. You'll have another break, and then we'll get into some script writing and your homework before we send you off. So that is what our facilitation design sessions part 1 and 2 will look like. So this should be a fun one. With that, I will hand it over to Angie.
All right. So I am really jealous. I just want to let you know right up front, because when I started my facilitation journey, I had no idea where to begin. And so you get this opportunity here to really think back and figure out, how do I just even get started with doing a facilitation? That's what this is all about. And if you recall, we start all our design with thinking about the rational aim. How many remember what a rational aim is? You remember these words? All right, seeing some head nods, that's good. That's a good sign. All right. So when we talk about rational aim, there's also the experiential aim, which we'll get to in a second, but the rational aim is what we we think about as the purpose or the goal from which we want to bring people together. So I'm inviting people to the table. Why should they attend? Be thinking about what is in it for them. What's going to make it worth their time? This is where we need to be clear about the intent, what we're trying to achieve or accomplish. What do we expect the participants to provide and bring to the table themselves? And what do we want them to know, understand, or decide? I don't know how many times when I write out a rational aim, do I run those 3 words through my head. So even write that down right now. What do I want the participants to know, understand, or decide? Those 3 things are really helpful when you're trying to craft your rational aim. So we want it to be more than what could have been done in an email, right? We want them to be able to be there for a reason. That's how we keep those community partners in place and really feel like they have a place at the table and their time is valuable, giving them purpose. So it's extremely important when asking people to events outside of our scope or their scope of their work. A lot of times they're attending on their own time. They could have been doing other things, but we really want to be able to tie what we're bringing to the table, asking them to come to the table, how it fits to their tasks or their responsibility, what's in it for them, and what will be their reason for attending. Questions on the rational aim. So what do we want them to know, understand, or decide? Then we go to the experiential aim. This is where we look at the purpose about the experience, how we want them to be in the conversation or be as a result of having the conversation, event or meeting. Because I went to this meeting, I am leaving with what? What are we walking away with? It's important that we really make that personal connection and that people feel like they've been heard and their contributions really mattered. If we hold space for that, the more likely they'll feel like they're a valued person. So the next event that you have, they're more likely to come back. This really, by articulating the experiential aim and saying how you want the group to be different at the end of the session, this will really make them, you'll be intentional with your design and making sure you do that inclusion if that's an important part. If you have some, let's say you've got some controversy and feeling like things are settled after we're done with this conversation, or that everyone knows how we integrate and fit together. We want to feel energized for some event that's happening in the community, all those kind of things. Do we want them to feel confident? Do we want to have them feel supported, relieved? It's these emotional things a lot of times we don't think of when we're doing design, but it's equally as important as writing out the goal. Sometimes I will suggest that not necessarily are we going to share as part of our design opening, the experiential aim, but we're certainly keeping it in mind as we form what we're going to do with the folks. So clarifying what experience you want participants to have is often overlooked, but as important as that goal. All right. So with that in mind, we want you to do a little bit of practice. So think about a community meeting to discuss increasing diversity at those community meetings. So that's what's happened. Identify who might be there and why would they be coming together. So you're going to be setting up a conversation and really think about that. So think about this community meeting that you might be pulling together to discuss increasing diversity in your community meetings. As you think about that, go ahead and scratch that down on a piece of paper in front of you. And then I want you to go ahead and type in the chat pod. What do you want the group to know, understand, or decide? And how will people be different as a result of participating? So we'll throw those two things in the chat and then just kind of give you a few minutes here to put those in there. So respond with what you want the people to know, understand, or decide, and how will they be different. Use your chat to type those in as you get those formulated. So all we need in the chat is the rational and experiential aim. So RA equals EA equals. Anyone got one that they can voice for us to get us started? You muted, Megan.
Got one coming into the chat right here. Rational aim, to know what diversity is.
So that's what we want them to know or understand or decide. So having a better understanding of what diversity is.
And we've got another one. Understand the importance of diversity and why it is so important to have different perspectives at the table.
And so does that answer what we want them to know, understand, or decide? I think so.
All right, we've got an experiential aim, to feel confident in discussing diversity in the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Another rational aim, understand the root of the diversity.
And so because it's understanding, that would be more of a rational aim, Kimberly, a really good rational aim. Okay, all right, I heard emotional, sorry. Absolutely.
Yep, she had RA there, yep. We've got another rational aim coming in, to understand the importance of diversity and how it will strengthen our community to have all voices at the table.
All right.
And then from Gwendolyn, know their role, understand how to fulfill their role, how they want to contribute.
And so Gwendolyn, you're thinking that's a rational aim? Yeah, I agree. Let's try on some of those experiential aims. They're not as easy because we're really good about goals. What would we want people to experience as a result of this conversation?
If I were leading this conversation, I think that I would hope that the participants would leave feeling valued and heard. And here we've got one, heard and valued as a diverse member of the community.
Mm-hmm. And especially in this kind of topic, the combination of that and what Rachel had put in there about being confident earlier, those are a couple things that are really big hurdles for folks. Sometimes they don't know what to say, and so they just don't say it. Well, we need to help folks feel confident in just speaking, right? Speaking their truth. An increased ability to be inclusive.
Well, here we've got a couple more coming in. Excited about the future meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And participants will feel empowered and excited to continue the work we started today.
Awesome. So as you look through, go ahead and open up your chat and just scroll through some of those. Let's just take a moment and reflect on it because we got a little bit of time here. Which one of those kind of really stand out to you that might make you respond if you were one of those community partners? Which one of those would really make you respond like, okay, this is worth of me getting out of my desk and driving to this meeting? I'm looking for voices now because I like to hear voices. Kimberly saying want them to feel like there is a positive direction they can participate in decreasing diversity. Let's think about a time where you perhaps were at a meeting where they just jumped into agenda and didn't do something like this, where you weren't real clear on what the meeting, why you were attending the meeting. Tell me about that experience. Everyone's been to one of those. I don't care if it's been a church meeting or it's been a parent-teacher organization meeting. What does a meeting that doesn't start with a rational aim or a goal look like?
Everyone's lost.
Mm-hmm. What else?
I think it's harder to get kind of engaged in the meeting. Your mind's still wandering, you're still thinking about work or whatever, other
Mhm.
things. Lack of wanting to become engaged in why you're there.
Yeah.
Just unsure of which direction or what is the meaning of the meeting. Basic, what's the meaning? We're just meeting.
Unclear on how to contribute.
Yeah. What is my role there? Yeah. So let's go down that a little bit and, there's my Jack. Think about how that made you feel, because we've all been in that meeting that hasn't had a real clear reason why we're there and not a real expectation of where we're going with this meeting. What was your experience with that meeting? No one's been to that meeting? Come on.
Unfortunately, I didn't take very much away from it.
Right.
I don't know if it just wasn't because it, like you said, didn't know why I was there, so I didn't take a lot from it. It was like I was just there.
Yeah. Thank you. A couple others.
I know I didn't want to participate in anything if there was any extra activities that needed to be or work groups or anything, because I didn't want to get myself engaged in something or involved in something that I didn't know really what the purpose was.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was a waste of my time.
All right. All the above. So as we think about designing our structure for your upcoming Community Connect events, I think that's what we're looking at. Think about what are some of the reasons why you want to spend some time really diving into what I call the bookends of your whole event. The rational experiential aim should be the bookends of what you do. And those that remember, I kind of get into math equations. What you put as your rational experiential aim should equal at the end of the meeting what you got out of the meeting, right? So what are some reasons why you now are really thinking that this is an important pause to really think about?
You want everyone that's participating to have a clear direction, and everything needs to be crisp and clean on the purpose and where you're going.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kimberly. So what we're going to do is keep on diving into this, but I really wanted to take a little extra time here because it is so important that we think about this rational experiential aim, because it does help you set the foundation for every meeting. This is also where you might want to do a check with one another and say, do I have this right? Am I missing something here? Because you're all doing similar work and you might have some good insight that you might be able to share with one another. So as you have those follow-up coaching calls, bring these to the table and say, am I on target? Because it really is the foundation to everything that you're doing. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Megan, I believe.
Yes. Here we go. So a couple of tips and hints as you start moving into your design. First of all, it's important that you know your audience, understand who will be in the room and what accommodations might be necessary. Be very clear about the purpose or intent of the session. Having a vague understanding or definition leads to scope creep, misunderstanding, and frustration for participants, which Angie was just talking about. Be realistic about what you can accomplish in the time that you have. This leads to knowing what tools are available to you so you can determine how you are going to design your session so people can share, get excited, be engaged, and leave with decisions made. So let's take a couple minutes to think about each of these individually a bit more. First one, a key element for success is to know as much as you can about your audience. Let's get another voice in the room. Will you read out for us? What is that list? What are we thinking about when we're trying to determine our audience?
You want to make sure you get people who will actually participate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you want to just read the bullets points that are on the screen there?
Who needs to be involved? What are their needs? What is the level of awareness? What is their role at the meeting? What do they know, don't know? What is their level of anxiety and trust? What has been their experience and what is their past experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So all really good questions that you can be asking yourself, and then some of those questions that you can bring forward to your design, um, that initial meeting that you have with your contact as well. All right. And then when it comes to determining our purpose and intent, share what you know. Don't try to trick people. You know, we want to have their buy-in. So we want to be really clear about why we are engaging people. Is it that we're looking for some input from people or some feedback? If we are hoping for some collaboration with our participants, if we're trying to co-create something together. Maybe we're just looking for some recommendations, or we have some decisions that need to be made. But it's important to be really transparent about your intent. There oftentimes maybe when a decision has already been made, and so our purpose of the meeting is simply to share out what those decisions are and to be able to get some feedback. If people feel that they are participating in a session because they get to have a voice in what decision is going to be made, and then come to find out that you've already made up your mind on something, that could leave people walking away feeling really frustrated. Why was I here if you already had made up your mind? So let them know what it is that they are there to do and that purpose, and to just be transparent with them. All right. And then finally, our time and tools. When planning a session, you need to make sure that what you are planning to achieve is realistic for the time that you have allotted. For people to feel engaged, it really takes time. People need to be able to participate at a speed that is comfortable for them. I don't know if you've heard Angie or I at any of these sessions talk about the crockpot thinkers and the microwave thinkers, and that people need different time frames in order to feel really comfortable to be able to get their voice in the room. Some need time to really process information, and other people are just can go, go, go. So consider who you have at the table. It's also common when designing a session to think that it will go faster than it will. There's a reason for this. As you are thinking and designing, you are getting comfortable with the content and what you need from your participants. The problem is that they are not up to speed with you, and it will take the group time to be where you are, thus taking longer to warm up, begin participating, and generating those ideas. Another way to look at this is from a time standpoint. For example, a 2-hour session or 120 minutes, right, with 20 people equals 6 minutes of talking per person. And that is if you do not take more than your 6 minutes of time to set your context, share the data, and thank people. If you want people to be involved or invested, they need to be able to contribute. This leads to making sure you do not have a one-size-fits-all approach. Knowing your audience, who is attending, your rational and experiential aims, what is the approach that will work best for the situation? Are you in person or are you virtual? Are you staying in a larger group or planning small group activities or breakout rooms? Do you need flip charts, printed data, maybe Google Docs, or are you going to be sharing a PowerPoint? Be aware of your own strengths and gaps, and if you move along too quickly, are you comfortable with silence? Do you push too hard for a decision, or do you not push hard enough? What are the personality characteristics in the room that you should be mindful of? What are the power dynamics in the room that you should be mindful of? Sometimes you may find, I always like to pause at this power dynamic piece and talk about it, because sometimes you have groups where you might have a supervisor, CEO, someone in the room with other members, and those other members might feel that I'm a little bit shy or don't know how to speak up. And so if you know that those dynamics are going to be in the room, then it might be a good idea to plan some of those small group work or breakout sessions, because then people might have a tendency to open up a little bit more if it's not in that large group, feeling like I'm afraid of sounding stupid, or I'm not sure that I can speak up here. So having them engage in those small group discussions will help them get their voice out. And then when it's time to share out what the group did, it feels safer somehow, because all of a sudden it's not just my idea, but this was our idea, our thinking collectively as a group that's being shared out. We also need to know our own biases, right? How do you remain neutral in your own biases in order to maintain a presence of that profound respect and inclusive participation? And finally, how do you keep your session engaging? Gone are the days of sage on the stage, right? If you want people to be part of the solution, they need to be invested, motivate, and feel like their contributions are valued. So let's pause for a moment. What questions do you have about timing, about the approach, about different tools? All right, hearing done. So Angie, what do you want to do here?
About, there we go. I just said you probably should unmute first. Let's go ahead and talk about those different personality types, and then we'll take a break after we go through that. So, so Megan was kind of leading into this section where we're going back and thinking about who is in the room, right? And so if you start thinking about who is in the room and really playing to doing some of that speed reading, so we'll think about that here in a second. Where do you need to build out your conversation? If you have, how many recognize first? I'm testing you. How many you recognize this image on the screen? Let's see the hands. Wake up, people. Where's the hands? Yes, you should see it, everyone. I don't see everyone's hand. All right, good. I had to do a caffeine check. If we need more caffeine, we're going to take a break and get caffeine, but I think we can power through this. So this is from your Luminous Spark and the different types of thinking, right? So when we think about those database thinkers, is this going to be a meeting that we're going to buzz through, or we're going to have to pause a little bit? What do those database thinkers need? Give me some voice to what database thinkers need. If you're a database thinker, what do you need in a meeting when you show up?
You need information.
Need information and time to process that information, right? So if you know you can read your room and you know you're going to have a lot of database thinkers, one, you're going to want to send out information ahead of time. You're going to want to make sure you give plenty of time in the meeting for them to digest that information. You're going to spend some time on some objective level questions so they really can get in it. If you have a lot of the Megans in the room, which are the emotive thinkers, where they really are important about, who's in the room and who's showing up, what are you going to make sure you spend some time on?
Getting to know each other. There's that relationship building.
Reflection,
relationships. So those icebreakers, as much as some of those other type of thinkers hate them, if you know you've got those emotive thinkers, which in your industry is a lot of caring folks, and you probably do have that. So you want to make space for that. Not always is it on the agenda that you have time for that. And so sometimes maybe you want to do something prior to, or have the coffee time that you can set aside in the beginning of a meeting so they have that space so that they feel included as well. And then when we get over to the yellow archetype, that's the visionary thinkers. What's important for the visionary thinkers? I've given you some clues already today.
Maybe discuss what the outcome of the meeting's going to be.
They like to hear voices. Absolutely, Kimberly. You need to have some space for those voices to be heard, because it's from hearing other people that they get their creative ideas and their juices going and feeling that they're valued. And so those visionary thinkers need time and space to be able to talk out loud and think it through. The critical thinkers, when we get into that section where they're critical thinking, what space do we need to leave open for them?
Time to discuss through the issues or the topic.
Yeah, they really want to say, okay, great ideas, but let's get some logical thoughts here before we move into any action. For so many years, we were missing this point, and when we were doing our facilitation design, and what happened was people weren't ready for action. If we didn't let those critical thinkers come into place, sometimes we were jumping into a half-thought idea. And so it's that pause that allows that space to really, process the information and really move us into that action-oriented thinker. So what do we need to think about with those action-oriented thinkers? We got several of you that are in that space too.
And need a plan of action.
Yes, they want to see that this is going to come out with something. So let's go back to where I started the day with the rational aim. Your action-oriented people really need to hear where we're going with this meeting right out front, because all the other things that we just talked about, they're going to tolerate, but if they know they're going to walk away with something that they're going to know, understand, or decide after the end of this meeting, they're going to be a little more patient with all that other things that we're having to put into play here to make that whole process work. What questions do you have, or where have you experienced some of these scenarios? Help us get into the scene where we've experienced some of these scenarios. Anyone have an example they could share?
We just had our CPA PW meeting last week, and it's a variety of people that are there, and just seeing that in the beginning with some of your brainstorming and so forth, and you could see some of the people who were getting very not irritated, but where they really show really got engaged was when we broke out into our small groups after we made the decision of kind of what those 3 core areas were going to be that we were going to focus on in a community. And when they got into those small groups where we could really get into those details and see what we were going to do, that's where they really got engaged. But in that beginning first few hours where we had to kind of talk things through and let the others who needed to be more the emotional and talk things through, you could tell they were very frustrated, almost defensive, because they felt like it was kind of a waste of their time. So you could almost see this whole circle play out in 6 hours through your workshop meeting, based on the type of people that are going to come together to help create this plan.
And I see some head nods amongst the screen here. So there's obvious some identifying with that. One thing to remember is that your database thinking, your motive thinking in the design is really cultivating those individual ideas. And if you need to make sure you understand where all your community partners are coming from, you need to spend that time. And so for those action-oriented and even the critical thinkers, to have them understand that we need to make sure we have everyone's perspective, so we have accurate information, so we move forward with swiftness, or really setting that out there for folks so they understand why we're going through this process, to allow them that patience, knowing that we're going to get to that experiential and rational aim. But first we need to cultivate the individual wisdom in the room and really understand where everyone's at before we can move into some new creative ideas. Thanks, Tiffin. Another example.
Okay, so I have one. I had my workshop, and all of my team leaders, I think, are visionary thinkers. So I've met one-on-one with each one individually, and looking at this makes me go back to talking to each one of them, because I had to, if it makes sense, redirect them to take smaller steps, because the conversations were more focused on the end and not what we need to do to get to the end. They see the bigger picture, the end, but they weren't taking like the smaller steps to get to the end. It was just, this is where we want to be, but you know, my thing was directing them, kind of guiding them back to what steps are you going to take to get to this big picture. You know, we have a amount of time, so you don't have to rush to it, or you don't have to put a lot into like a month or a week. So this conversation kind of just takes me back to just talking to each one of them and trying to figure out how to have a conversation with them to keep them on track to kind of get some progress made, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think what you're explaining is where they have this vision, but not necessarily how to get there. And so one thing you might be missing, and anyone else weigh in here too, one thing you might be missing is they may not realize all the multiple steps. So getting them maybe partner up with some database thinkers so that, you know, let's hear our Bob's ideas. They're really great ideas, but maybe Sally, you can get, you know, ground them with some of the things that we need to think through before we can get there. So even a couple folks together that are different spots on the Mandela might help them understand what is missing in their ideas. So thinking about that too. Great examples. Let's see how this fits in with the conversation method. So you should have this in some of your documentation that you have as one of your resources. So the database thinkers are really when we think about the ORID and the conversation design, that's where we are getting the, you know, what do you see? What do you know? What do you understand? It's looking at a report. It's the facts and information. So to Tangia, your example is, you know, you've got great ideas out here, Bob, but what do we have to go back on and saying this fits in our grant in what ways, and really ground them in what facts are needed. So having a conversation, if you do a one-on-one, is really diving into some of these things that might be missing for them. Let's explore some of the things that we know. What do we, where does this fit in the picture that we have in the plan already? The next level of questions that we have is from the O, we go to the R, the reflective questions. And so with that, we are talking about the feelings or reactions. A lot of you already identified this even with experiential aim. Having space to really create questions that can bring out that experiential aim in this this section of the conversation design really will allow you to address what is, you know, underlying all this, you know, need for change or ideas, where they're coming from, what has been their experience, where do they know that things need to be different, what do we need to hold to preserve and make sure we, you know, carry into our next event. And so with those two together, that's where the visionary thinkers can be grounded and take into account and move into some of that visionary thinking. Not everyone's going to answer the interpretive level questions. Those interpretive level questions are going to be things that are formulating in people's minds as they hear those individual thoughts about what they're noticing and how people are taking in that information on the reflective level. And it's from those very visionary thoughts that we can start thinking, okay, based on everywhere we've been, we can get into that decision and really establish accountability. Who's going to do what by when? And so those two on the right are about the group from their understanding of the individual. I'm going to pause here. What are people thinking right now? How are you taking in this information?
It really makes sense. And when you're in a meeting, like when we had our community action planning workshop, you know, I'm sitting there thinking, it's like, okay, that person is you know, is the blue, this one's red, this one's yellow. And it really kind of, you know, you can kind of start seeing the personalities and how people relate to each other and how they are contributing to the meeting and how they think of things.
Mm-hmm. So thinking about how we design the conversation, just a real quick reminder on the ORID. When we do the conversations that matter, when we think about that, the database question is something that we ask everyone. Remember that? It's a question that we go around. What did you see? What did you notice? And we ask everyone that question. It's the warm-up question. You know, look at the picture, that one of the 9 pictures this morning. Which one are you noticing? Which one's standing out to you? Something to get everyone's voice in the room. Even if some of us, me, have little or no blue in us, we need to have our voice brought into the room right away. And the objective level question is the easiest one to answer because it's what we take in from our information. If you're very introverted and you may have a lot of introverts, that blue thinker can contribute on what they see, hear, or notice, right? We're not asking them to think deep. We're asking them just to take surface level information and share it with us. Once people have their voice in the room, they're more likely to participate. From there on, it's on a personal level. Some people may not feel comfortable on that reflective level. They may not feel like they can contribute at that level. Others may have lots to share, and that's the space. Like you were saying, Rachel, you can identify where some folks are showing up in the room. And so some may need that more so. And so what Meg and I are suggesting is really kind of getting a feel of who's going to be in the room, because you'll need more questions depending on what's the makeup of your folks in the room. If they're really a lot of blue thinkers, you're going to want to make sure you front load this conversation with a lot of data. But if they really have some charged emotions, and if you're talking about diversity and inclusion, you may have some charged emotions on that. And you may need space for people to really explore and create a safe area with breakout rooms, for instance, so people can be honest and feel safe to share, or table talk if you're doing in-person meetings. So just thinking about that design and how each of these come in and putting those questions at a level. We oftentimes do a quick question. Remember when we did our practice, we were like, give us 1 objective level question, 2 reflective level questions, 1 interpretive level question, 1 decision level question. That's not a formula that you always follow. That is for when you are practicing. When you are doing this as a real facilitator, you've got to think about each of these thinkers and where they're showing up and where do you need more time spent. So as Rachel's already alluding to, we can kind of identify what are all these different thinkers. And then again, this is in your materials from when we did our Lumina session. So the next slide is about building rapport. If you know you've got a lot of the database thinkers, who's one of my database thinkers? I don't need to be the only one talking here. Who's got some, okay, Karen, give it to me. What do you need?
All the details, to include the timelines, who is involved, you know, how rushed this is going to be, all the considerations up front, because I don't want anything thrown in or changed at the last moment.
Right. So the written evidence, the proof, the data, the numbers, all those kind of things are going to be important. All right, who's my green person here? Who's got a lot of green other than Megan? When you show up a meeting, what do you need? Kelly.
I have a lot of green, though it isn't my primary.
Okay.
I have a lot of green mixed with yellow, but it's only because that stuff matters to me, though it isn't what drives me.
Mm-hmm. And so talk to us about in a meeting design, what would be important for you?
I definitely, in a meeting, I want to see data. I want to see proof, but more importantly, I want the story that goes with that data. If you're just giving me a bunch of data and you can't give me a big picture and how that all plays into it and why you are needing something, if you're not doing something with that data that's persuasive, then, you know, you've lost me.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Absolutely. And so then the big picture thinkers, the visionary thinkers, who's that person?
I am that.
Okay. And so tell us what you need in that meeting, Kimberly.
Definitely bottom line it, big picture. Don't overwhelm me with all kind of details, all kind of numbers. I need like a skeleton type outline.
Mm-hmm.
And what are we doing next? What's the next step to win?
Sure. So in this kind of situation with those big picture thinkers and the visionary thinkers, they need to be engaged, need to know where this is going in the future, got to keep it positive. So it might be as you move into this, you might turn it back to those. And so where are we at so far as a group? Turn it back to the group saying, And now that we've heard that, what are some of the things that we're hearing from where we're at? So we've got the data, we've reflected on it. Can someone summarize where we're at right now? And then you can move into some of that. So create that skeleton, as Kimberly's telling us, before you move into that visionary kind of question, to help them sift through all the stuff that has maybe come from those first 2 levels. And then who's been waiting for us to get done with this section already? Who's my red folks? Tangia, what do you need from a meeting?
I'm most definitely what's in it for me. I like to know why am I there and what's at the end. Like I can kind of filter from the beginning to the end, but I need to know why am I there and what am I going to get out of it and where am I supposed to do with it. And I'm kind of finished.
So what we really have identified as our rational aim, that really identified with you, right, Tangia? It's important. Start that meeting with, tell me why I'm here and what we're going to get out of this in the end. So that you, those visionary or the action-oriented thinkers, know that we're eventually going to get there. Awesome. Thanks for everyone playing along with me. So some of the things that you can do, like Rachel was saying earlier, speed reading, you're able to really talk about speed reading in a way that you just know. So when you walk into a room and you see someone who has a very organized desk that they're just sitting back and they're taking in and they're looking, processing, and they want to prove that to me. Those are the folks that are going to be those you can think, I got a lot of objective level thinkers here, or database thinkers. Then you have those that really want to, you know, how are we making sure we include everyone in, you know, can we have coffee together, and those kind of signals. You're going to think that those are really those emotive thinkers and those people-oriented thinkers. And those that are just really full of hand gestures, hello, can't help myself, and being that super happy, positive person, and perhaps just, I got an idea kind of thing. You know, you've got those visionary thinkers, and those that are just like, okay, tell me what you need. What do you need from me? How many have been into that person's office and they're like, what do you need from me? I can't believe you haven't been to that office. No one have that person? It can be kind of intimidating. But just know that, you know, to Tangia's point, tell me what it is, and then we can back up and do some of those things. Okay, so we are at top of the hour. Let's go ahead and what we're going to do when we come back, and Robbie, I wasn't able to communicate with you, so we do have a breakout room just to kind of process our Mandela as a team. So let's give yourselves a 10-minute break, so quarter after the hour. And when you come back, we're going to put you in a breakout room just for a little bit to look at your team Mandela and just talk about your differences and how that plays out in the thinking of meeting design, so we can really help each other, you know, understand where we each come from and how we might be able to support each other and what maybe we can think of as we go into meeting design. All right, quarter after. And so, yeah, Megan, I asked Robbie if we could get some breakout rooms for that. Breakout rooms. So, Megan, would you like to just go through the breakout rooms and ask whether what was your takeaway from your conversation? What were some things that you thought of?
Yeah, so room number 1, Becca, Diane, Megan, and Tiffin.
Well, I guess I'll kick it off here. Gals, unmute yourself here, join in, because since I am the extrovert over here. Although I didn't do most of the talking, everyone else did. But we did go through kind of where we were and kind of what our strengths were. And Becca kind of led us through the conversation of, you know, if we were facilitating a meeting, what would be our strengths and what would we, you know, each contribute to facilitating a meeting. And towards the end, we kind of brought together like what we've discussed already this morning. And we're like Megan and Diane, you know, maybe those ORID questions would be a great place for them to, because, you know, they're really into kind of that introverted, that people focused data collection. And so is Becca, you know, and maybe Diane too would be part of that rational aim, where, you know, maybe me being that kind of that big picture extroverted would be more of that experimental aim. What are they feeling? What are they looking for? That kind of that connectiveness. So trying to kind of look at what we've learned this morning and looking at our strengths based on the Mandela, and then where would we best fit within that kind of facilitation of what you would see like kind of in your first beginning of your day. So working within a group.
Great reflection. And Jack's not going to be able to let me talk. So Megan, let's go to the next room and we'll process at the end.
All right, room number 2. Let's hear from Donna, Gwendolyn, Rachel, and Tangia.
Well, I started off the group, myself, Tangia, Rachel, and Gwendolyn. We basically just did self-discovery of where we would fall in the actual group. If we were actually in a coalition, who would we want at the table and what part they would play. So we quickly realized that I myself would probably get things kicked off. I would have the checklist, be the planner, kind of facilitate, move on, and then we'll have Rachel. You can go from there and take over and say what you would do.
Yeah, so I would be the one to take charge and make sure that the actions are getting taken care of, that everybody knows about what's going on, what they're responsible for, making sure our goals are met, and following up with our actions.
And then we figured out that based upon our Mandela, the big picture, that I can see the bigger picture and what the outcome should look like. And at the end, I will be the person that, that wants to know where do we start, what is our goal, and what does it look like at the end. And if it doesn't look like what we want it to look like at the end, then I can take it and kind of focus on getting it to look like what we want it to look like at the end. So that's where I would fall in. As far as our group, we realize that it's important to have different personalities and different people, a diverse group of people to work with. So you'll have someone represent each stage of where you're trying to go.
My part in there where I would be more people focused, seeing and realizing who we have around the table, what would be their interests according to maybe what their role would be, and according to what role they play in their agency or function, and inspiration driven. And also big picture thinking.
Awesome.
I'm complete.
And that leaves us, that was everyone, right? So room 3, we've
Let
got.
me just make an observation. Now I sent Jack outside. A couple things is, what you notice is when you had introverted people in your first group, how the breakout rooms, everyone started talking. The introvert folks like to have those small table talks. So, or those people who are more in the intimate area. So you've got a lot of people right there in that corner of introvert people focused. If you find that you're reading the room and that's where they're at, make sure you have some turn to your partner type time, because they're going to open up a little bit more. Rachel, you made me think of a great place for those that are, let's get down to details and let's get to business. They make great note takers because it gives them a purpose to be there and has something that they're doing while they're waiting for everything else to commence. And so identifying some of those and having them a role to play so that they can stay focused in what the meeting is and tolerate the rest of the journey around the circle. So those are a couple observations so far. I'm complete.
All right. And then our room 3 has Jamie, Kathy, Kimberly, Lanaya, and Sue Ellen.
We had a breakout room full of greens with one red, and then me, which is I'm more blue. So we talked a lot about kind of just how they would participate in the meeting, and everybody kind of had the same sort of thoughts in the sense of what they want to get out of a meeting, what their most important focuses are at the meetings. And so we talked about also, like, they seem to be more big picture folks, and it's really hard to focus on some details. So having somebody else in the room who can get into the details is really important. And yeah, so that was kind of the bulk of the conversation. And most of the conversation was kind of just talking about where we fall on here and how that impacts us.
One thing that if you have a lot of green energy, they will need, I observe a lot of times the green energy is going to make sure they explain things, and then that explains things a little bit more to make sure that everyone is really understanding what, does everyone have an understanding here? And so sometimes it takes the red Lanaya type folks to say, okay, I think we get it. Let's move along. Because it is not that they are trying to belabor something, but they want to make sure everyone's been heard and that everyone's feeling valued in the space that they have. So they don't want to leave anyone behind, but sometimes the bottom lining is necessary to keep the meeting moving forward. Sticking to a timeline. We've had enough time discussing it, and so if you need to write your thoughts down, that's another great way to respect those folks that maybe didn't get heard, but keeping to your timetable, but allowing that space for those folks to really have that discussion time. So thanks. All right, that means we're going to get into the demonstration. Thank you for having that discussion with each other. We are setting up the center staff for a descriptive journey through your assignment that's going to be coming up to you. So Karen, I turn it over to you.
Thanks, Angie. And just for all the champions, we are going to send out a separate copy of this after the training on Thursday. So you will have your own version of this, and you will get to practice on Thursday with each other in breakout rooms. Just a little bit of background about this intake form. So we have been partnering with Hugh Life, I think, since the beginning to train our champions in facilitation methods. And you all have gone through many iterations of this. You have also seen us facilitate your Community Connect event, and for most of you, your Community Priority Action Planning workshop. You have likely seen the handouts that we as facilitators work off of when we facilitate your workshops. They are fairly long, probably 10 to 20 pages, just in case we've got additional facilitators that are joining us that maybe have not done a facilitation before. They can see the steps that we take as facilitators. They can see the rational experiential aim that really guide the work that we're going to be doing with your communities. And we kind of realized, I think, 2 years ago, Angie, that we needed an extra training in here that helped you guys feel confident in designing your own facilitations. You have participated in ours, and you have received the training on the methods themselves. So you really do know kind of the pieces of the puzzle, but we wanted you guys to feel confident in writing up your own facilitations. I want to be clear up front, these are not your 10 to 20 page facilitations that we're asking you guys to write, but we wanted to give you some type of a framework that helps you brainstorm how to begin, who needs to attend, kind of purge all the thoughts in your mind that relate to the topic that you want to discuss. And so that's kind of the intention of the intake form. You're going to see that it's broken up into different steps. So before we write any type of a new facilitation, we don't jump right into an agenda, and we don't jump right into the words that we want to speak to the group. We start at what are we hoping to accomplish? So what Angie and Megan went through with you guys in developing that rational experiential aim, that's the same place that we start. And so this is our step one on the brainstorming and intake form. We provide some space for you guys to just jot some thoughts. We really do want this to be a brainstorm. So as an individual and our community champion, you could use this intake form by yourself. You may also work with your supervisor or your CEO to design something. I've heard on the last round of quarterly progress calls, I think at least 2 of our cohort 2021 champions were starting to design facilitations for their facility independent of their role required by the center. So we are excited that your skills are being noticed, and we want to give you this tool that will help you kind of pull it all together in one place. You can also see in the top under general notes that this can be used for a group. And I would caution you, if you do this with a group, I would maybe not go too big, because a lot of ideas may expand your facilitation and stretch you a little bit too much where you're struggling to accomplish it. So we are going to be doing a demo in a couple of moments that has 2 individuals that will be working with me as the community champion to think through kind of how we would design this facilitation or workshop. You can see at the very top, we start with just the topic. We want to be descriptive enough to develop your rational experiential aim. So you can see the example here, engaging community joint partners to collaborate to address community health concerns. That is specific enough that you can develop some aims off of. So it doesn't have to be that exact example. You may, I think Jennifer Barber, if you guys know her, she had a conversation around health equity and worked with frontline staff to understand kind of the barriers that people who speak a second language might have when they come into a healthcare facility. What they wanted to understand kind of all of the challenges so they could update some of their processes or their documents, things like that. So her topic here related to health equity of English as a second language patients in the community. You could also set something out here that's related to re-engaging your community partners if you're struggling. You could design a conversation that says, you know what, we noticed that 2 of these priority areas are making great progress, but one of them has stalled out, and we want to understand what the problem is. Get all of your thoughts here listed in this topic. Our templates, you're going to see a Google version and a Word version. These are expandable boxes. So if you have additional thoughts that you want to put down here, we highly encourage you to get it all down. Make sure that you're not forgetting anything before moving to the lower sections. You can also see the bottom half here starts off with our rational aim. And we have seen a lot of challenges with developing aims over the years. So we do have kind of a correct wording and an incorrect wording. Notice the incorrect wording is questions. We see a lot of questions listed in our aims, and we want them to be a little bit more like statements. I think, Angie, you said know, understand, and decide is the notes that I took that you mentioned earlier. So please work to develop rational aims that accomplish those areas. And again, we will start at the top and we move ourselves down. And you know what, as we're building something out, we may jump back up to the top to add a new thought or to add in an extra aim that we didn't think through the first time. So this is really a working document to help you get all of your ideas on paper. Megan, can you switch to the next animation? I think we missed a portion of it, but below the rational aim, there's also the experiential aim as well. And I will show that to you. Generally, we get all of our ideas down in the step 1 portion before we move to the agenda. So we don't want you to just jump to an agenda, throw things on there. We want it to be defined by the thoughts that we had up in step 1 of this. When we work together in June, we will have small groups actually go through this intake form, all 3 steps. When we have our champions do this, we generally have them fill out 1 step at a time. So put everything in step 1 and then talk to a member of the staff. Is that specific enough? Does it provide the framework that we can design an agenda around or some facilitation thoughts around? If we get the green light and say, hey, that is specific, then we can move to the agenda. Sometimes we may say you're taking on a little bit more than we want you to take on this first round. And let's kind of rewrite some of those aims. So at the end of the day or at the end of your workshop, you can feel like you've accomplished something. We want this to be a manageable training, and so we generally start our facilitation intake form design with things like focus conversations and not a full consensus-based workshop and action planning like you did just most recently in the last 2 months. Again, you can see our agendas for community priority action planning and connect events look a lot like what you're going to see on the intake form here. We want to be specific about who that audience is, the date and time, or maybe where it's going to take place, if it's virtual or at a specific location in your community. All of these things will help you in step 3. And this is what you can see when we have shared facilitation scripts with you in the past. So staffing, is this something that you as a champion are going to facilitate by yourself? Maybe your supervisor wants to assist you, or maybe you have another key community partner who wants to join you on this conversation. Again, we think about our audience when we're designing any type of facilitation, because we want to incorporate the different colors of the lumina, but we also want to think about, what do they know? What do they need to know? What are the conversations that we can develop for this facilitation that will help accomplish that rational and experiential aim we outlined in step 1. We also list, as you can see on the far right side, materials. So preparation is key when you're facilitating, because it helps us feel more confident that we are ready to go. So we want to think through, if this is in person, maybe I need a slideshow and I need some tech. Maybe I need some note-taking or flip chart paper if I want to engage and gather some feedback from community partners. Graffiti walls is something you'll also hear facilitators talk about a lot, because that's another way to visually allow a group of partners to see kind of each other's thoughts all up on a piece of paper. So those are some of the materials that we want you to also think through. We always have on our facilitation guides days before the workshop, meeting, or event, like what are the things that we can do to prep for that. A lot of you for priority action planning, contacted somebody who was going to provide food or some little thank you gifts for participating. Those are all those things that we want to make sure that we cover, so we feel prepared on the day of. And then generally 30 to 60 minutes prior to any workshop, meeting, or event, we like to show up before all of our partners show up, so we can set up our space, maybe move the tables, get some refreshments ready to go. Sometimes we'll review our facilitation a couple more times, or read through a tougher section that we were struggling with, just to make sure that we feel comfortable moving forward with it, or maybe even write something in at the last moment. But this is kind of the framework that we use, and it's going to be provided to you all following Thursday's training. Megan, can we move to the demo? So you are going to see essentially us demonstrate how to use this. Donna and Robbie are going to be kind of my community partners, and I'm going to be the community champion. We are utilizing the same topic that you guys were thinking through rational experiential aim for earlier. And I'm going to be screen sharing a Google Doc that will be used as our demo for today. Megan, you want to stop with the screen share and I will take it on? Okay, is my font large enough for everybody? So I've got mine extra large today, so if you cannot see, let me know and I'll go a little bit bigger. But you can see step 1, step 2, and step 3 in the contents, and we are starting at step 1. So Robbie and Donna, we recently held our community priority action planning workshop, and we completed a Wilder collaboration factors tool. And I was kind of surprised at who showed up, or actually more honestly, who didn't show up for the workshop. It seemed like we had kind of a smaller group than I expected, and we were missing a lot of diversity that kind of represents what our community looks like. And so I'd really like to kind of start a conversation and work with our community partners in the future to increase the diversity of partners that show up to our workshops and can help us implement some of the areas that we set out to do. So we have more impact. So we're creating more meaningful change for the residents in our community. I'd like to start with just some general notes. So is there anything that we should keep in mind if we're wanting to talk to our partners and, grow our group to increase diversity?
Hi, I think having community center representation in rural communities is key.
What is the value of having some more diverse partners?
Diverse opinions.
Say that again.
Diverse opinions.
You're getting a different perspective from each sector that you're bringing into that room. And you're bringing in an opportunity to share different experiences from what they see among, within their organization across the community.
It also allows a balance of power dynamics.
You want to talk about that a little bit more?
Power dynamics is just making sure the relationships between people in an organization, in my mind, is balanced. No one person is feeling like they are lower than another. Everyone has the same values, voice, opinions, and they feel like that whatever they say will be heard, noted, and activated upon.
I don't know if this is what it probably is, but community calendar. The one thing that I've had to keep in mind in my community is making sure that I keep up with that in order to create a time and a space that people can attend a meeting that I may have.
Pulled a couple things from what you said there, Tangia. Well, since I hear a little bit of quiet or pause right now, I'm going to move back down this intake form. But if there's something else that you think of as we're talking, please let me know and we'll add it to our thoughts above. So if we think about increasing the diversity in our community events, can you expand upon that a little bit further? How could we do that?
Could invite everybody.
We could invite everybody. What do we need people to know to get the diversity increased?
That they're going to have a opportunity to give their what they want from their community. They're going to have a piece in it.
Okay.
Opportunity to I lost that thought actually. So now an opportunity to I lost my thought for a second. To share.
Opportunity to share.
And it was another word I was going to use too. To feel a part of, valued.
So I think that idea sounds a little bit like the feeling I want participants to feel. Gwendolyn, are you okay if I move that a little bit further down in my intake form here?
Yes, that's fine. I still had another word, but I can't think of it now. I'm sorry.
What else do you think we need to do to increase diversity? How does our workshop specifically help get to growing diversity? Or how could it? We maybe haven't done a great job at this in the past.
Reflect on the historical perspective.
Okay.
For instance, I know in my conversation with the community center stakeholder, in the past, community centers have been seen as maybe after school care, after school activities. Moving forward, they would like to be seen as change agents.
Okay.
I think that some of the community partners, I mean, from our experience, has been they all have their own mission and what they're going to do and what they're trying to accomplish. But when they're all sitting in a room together, they find that their goals are pretty much the same. And so being able to utilize each other's strengths, connections, ideas, or whatever, it just seems to be a smarter way to approach the community instead of being so siloed, trying to work it together. It seems like each organization has their own initiative, and a lot of it is the same. Or they think it's the same.
So we've got a lot of ideas in a lot of different sections here, and I could probably copy and paste some to move them around a little bit. Similar goals across organizations and leverage connections. Does that sound like a rational aim that we can accomplish? Or could we rephrase it a little bit to make it feel like you could accomplish that?
I feel like we could rephrase it a little bit.
Okay. Do you want to take a stab at it? We want to think about something that we can truly accomplish in a workshop. So if we're focusing on increasing that diversity amongst our community partners, our workshop would, or we hope to accomplish today, might be a good way to, in your head, start a sentence. You don't have to show all of your partners or your supervisor this part, but as community champions, I would like you to help me come up with some aims here. So if we want similar, we recognize that there are similar goals across organizations, and we want to leverage connections. What should we do here? We're already gonna help people feel valued, so that's gonna help.
I don't know if you can put something in there about like maximizing, resources too, because I mean, you have limited resources, but together you have greater resources for connecting to the community, and it almost streamlines to the community too. There's so many different things available for community members that it's very hard for them to know who's what, who's doing what, where do I go? It's confusing.
Yes. So you guys are doing a really great job of being that feedback, of talking to somebody and brainstorming. I've got a lot here under my rational aim, and I don't know that as a facilitator, I'd want to take all of this on in one workshop. For example, maximizing resources and making them aware of what's available is a key area that several of you are working on. So maybe in this conversation, I want to start a little bit small because I'm thinking about increasing diversity. We maybe need to set the stage in some way, right? We need to get everybody with the same information. So let's maybe start there. And I'm going to put that as a rational aim. So I want to ensure that I provide all the information up front for attendees to participate in our conversation on diversity. And see how that's kind of almost a pre-step to some of these other goals that we have set here. I generally will put all of the ideas still in this document and copy and paste them and move them around. So if some of these things don't sound like an aim I can accomplish, I might copy and paste it back up into the notes. It's kind of like parking lot where I can work with it later or maybe use it for a future workshop but it doesn't have to fall into the planning for this one. So I want to also invite everyone, Robbie, if you're okay with that. And I'm going to move down a little bit further here to the attendees. So somebody says, let's invite everyone. Let's put them down here for a moment. And if somebody says stakeholders, I kind of want to put them down here as well. So we have something to go off of because those are very different ideas. And honestly, this is kind of what you might see in real life too. Your CEO may be a very big picture and want to invite everybody in the service area. And that's a lot of people, and maybe you're intimidated. Maybe you want to focus on some key stakeholders. So maybe I'm going to use Jennifer Barber again. The Amish in her community were a key demographic that were left out of conversations. They also had some individuals who spoke a Mayan dialect, and that was individuals that were left out. Maybe some of you had a lot of homogeneity in age, and you wanted to diversify ages. So think through all of these areas based off of what your actual community is. So you can honestly put whatever you want to down here below. We know that we want everybody to feel valued, but is there anything else that we want to go for experiential? How do we want people to feel?
I'm just going to jump in. I feel like it's really important to feel like there's representation. So when I leave there, folks that in my community, I feel like my group is represented, whether it's by me or by a group of folks in there, that, you know, there's representation for various populations and communities within an area, right?
Yes.
Having them invited makes them feel that they're important.
So I've got a couple different ways of phrasing this here. So I want to feel that my group or population is represented, does feel a little bit more experiential, but if you want to make sure that you accomplish that I invited a representative group, that may fall more under your attendees below. That might also fall up under your rational aim. I don't know that I would say it to everybody, but I would personally want that to be accomplished. Generally, we come up here and we would kind of number probably 2 to 4 different rational aims that we want. And I want you guys to look in the chat box, because we've discussed this earlier, and we're going to refine our rational aims here based off of some of your ideas earlier, because this is a lot for me as a facilitator to accomplish in a workshop. And I'm taking your stream of thoughts here and I'm kind of putting them on individual lines. So if we want to give people the opportunity to share their wants and feel that they have a piece in this, is that something that a workshop could accomplish? Yeah, I think you're right. Do we want to give everybody the opportunity to share? Yes, that kind of aligns with the wording up here. So if you don't mind, I'm going to delete this one because I think we've got it represented here. Can we reflect on the historical perspective or what's happened in our community? Yeah. Can we have them be seen as change agents? I'm not seeing a lot of nodding on this one. I see one nodding. That might take some time.
Are you talking about the historical being perspective changing? Is that what you're talking about? What?
Nope. I think Donna was intending it to be kind of what the historical perspective is in our specific community that we're facilitating this conversation for. So
Yes.
she wants to ensure that to be able to increase diversity in our community events, we kind of understand what the history is in our community with different groups.
Okay, what about the change agent? I thought you attached those two.
I was more reflecting on being seen as an agent of change. Maybe after we've done the action, like maybe that would be one of the end goals of having my specific agency or partnership coming together. That would be like what I would want to end as, coming out of it, leaving out of it. I would like to feel like that. So maybe that would be moved to experimental.
Yes, I agree with that, because I think to have them to feel that way, one of the things that I do in one of our projects that we're doing through our priority planning group, and I like to do the agenda, and I got down out of the county health and rankings roadmap, they have a phrase there, and it says, call them leaders, change makers, stakeholders. These are the people whom you want to partner with and that make things happen. So it's really important that you really zero in that they are agents of change. So I agree with you, Donna.
So some of these ideas, and you can see that as you guys were talking, I was just writing. It does not have to perfectly fall into an experiential or a rational aim at the beginning, because sometimes we need to reflect on really where we want to go with the conversation, and move it around up to the notes, maybe down to the attendees, maybe experiential if we want to feel something or we want to experience something in this workshop. And then some of the things we may say, you know what, I don't know that I can really take this on during our facilitation or a conversation or a workshop, whatever it is that you may be designing for. But if you get all these thoughts out in a rational and experiential aim, you can kind of weed out some of the ideas that might be a little bit too much to take on in the time that you have set out. So again, let's keep going here. So we're reflecting on our historical perspective, ensuring that I provide all the information up front for our attendees to participate in our conversation on diversity. Is that something we can accomplish? Or we hope to accomplish? I see one person nodding. What do others think?
I'm seeing a couple others nod.
I hope that we can do that always. So when we set the stage, we as a facilitator are responsible for being able to provide the information for everybody to engage. If they can't do that, then you probably were not successful in giving enough information up front, or at least pausing to allow people to ask some questions off of what you've just said. Similar goals across organizations and leverage connections, maximizing resources and make them aware of what's available. Does that sound like it fits within the conversation that we're designing right now? Or is that maybe a longer range goal that could help guide us?
I think that needs to be a little bit further down the road.
Okay, I'm in agreement with you. Gosh, this is jumping around. Sorry guys, if you're gonna get sick here. So I'm gonna just put it up here because I think it's still something that I want to keep in mind for the future, but I don't know that I can accomplish it right now. That might be more of a at least a 3-hour workshop. So if we look through this intake form, this is kind of how we want you to work with it. Putting down some aims, seeing if you can accomplish that, going back up to your topic, okay, increasing diversity in our community events, and saying, okay, we got to start here, but maybe there's a couple aims that are missing. And I don't want to take all of our time today just to work on aims, because I know that's kind of something we're all constantly continuing to grow in. but that is how you're going to be filling out this form. You are not going to do this initially by yourselves. So on Thursday, you will have other champions to brainstorm with, just like you would in real life with your community joint partners or with your CEO. We want you to kind of question where things fit so that you are comfortable moving them forward. This next part is pretty self-explanatory, but it does give a little bit of examples of some partners that you may not have thought of. You can see that these are more organizations. If you're thinking about diversity, there might be specific groups that you're listing or key contacts that are associated with some of those groups in your community. We want you to think through total invitees. Remember that we are thinking through engaging all voices in the room. So if we make our groups too big, some of our quieter members can be lost. And when we're talking about a topic like diversity, it can be contentious sometimes. There are historical voices that have been quieted or not allowed to speak in some settings. And so we need to be mindful of, we don't maybe want 30 plus people at this workshop. If this is a sensitive topic, we may want to use smaller groups. We may want to ensure that we include all of the different parts in the focus conversation and the Lumina so that all those different perspectives can have a say in the conversation that you're going to be building out. Again, these are brainstorming, so we want you to work together as champions or with your partners and your leadership to help kind of think through who to invite for these workshops. Date and time. In real life, we are checking with our partners to see if graduation is happening or if there's a holiday upcoming, things like that we need to work around because we use this intake form for real workshops. So we need to think through, are they virtual? Are they in person? How much time can people sit in front of a computer screen if we are virtual? All those types of things, we want you to think as if this were a real life workshop. And we will actually in June be facilitating some of these conversations with each other. So we want you to practice out loud saying some of these questions and thinking through who is really in attendance or how long it's going to take to hold conversations. And then once you have come up with all of the thoughts that you can think for that step one above, you're going to be meeting with us to talk through any of those areas that you are concerned about or confused about. If everything looks great, you've got very defined aims, you have a doable timing, we're going to say move to this section here, develop the agenda. We want you to list those rational aims, list the audience, the date and time, and then start thinking through, if I have to set the stage and provide them all the information they need to talk about diversity and increasing that amongst our community partners, how much time is it going to take me to do that? What are the resources that I need? How do I want people to feel, or what do I want them to experience for each of these sections here? Community conversations, as all of you know, that kind of relates to the ORID or the focus conversation method and listing some questions there in specific order intentionally, and just thinking through how much time do we realistically need to facilitate a conversation with partners on the topic that we choose. And all of you are not going to use this topic. This was more just our demo topic today. But it doesn't mean that for some of you who are challenged with diversity in your actual workshops that you couldn't design something for your community partners in the months ahead. Before I move on, I want to jump to our step 3, and this is the facilitation script part. So once step 1 and step 2, you feel pretty confident in, this is the facilitation script that you have seen us use, where we start to list off specific time frames. So if we're starting at 9 o'clock, we may want 20 minutes for our introductions because they tend to take a little bit longer than you think they do. You may want to have 20 minutes to set the stage based off of some slides that you've got to share or some talking points that you have developed. We want you to think through all of that. when we write facilitations, as you've seen, we have our actual talking points in there. We may not be reading them as we're facilitating with you guys, but as I mentioned, if I were to get sick and I have to have somebody, fill in for me, it's nice for them to have something to go off of. But we do want you to build out a facilitation for your topic, and that will take place, and you'll actually facilitate it with each other in June. So there's plenty of time to start playing with this intake form, brainstorm with each other on the topic that you get on Thursday, and attend Q&As, talk to our staff to fill out different sections of this. So you are comfortable going from knowing the methods themselves to actually designing some workshops or some conversations for you to have in real life with your partners. What questions do you guys have about this form or how it gets filled out?
I think it's very self-explanatory.
Okay.
I think the way that it's broken down in like table form, it's very easy to brainstorm and write your notes through.
Thank you. And in general, when I use a form like this and I am designing a workshop that I've never designed before, I put a lot of time up in this step one. And I am not necessarily going to design the facilitation below with my supervisor or with my community joint partners, because it's a little bit more in the weeds than they need to go. But if I were a community champion, I'd sure want to share that with another community champion who is trained in some of these techniques and can read it with a little bit more discerning eye. I will regularly share my facilitations that I've developed from scratch with Selena or with Ambrosia to just say, does this, does my timing look right? Am I really accomplishing what I set out to do in those aims? Another set of eyes, I think, is really just helpful no matter how many years of facilitation experience that you've got. Okay, Angie and Megan, I'm going to stop sharing. So we have got Kelly with us. Yes, Kelly, you're still here. Kelly is a champion from cohort 2020, and she has used this intake brainstorming form to design her own facilitations. And I think she's going to share a little bit of perspective with us today. So Kelly, welcome. Do you want to just start off by kind of telling them, how you got tasked with designing this new facilitation, maybe what that background was like?
Just like you all, I got tasked with creating the facilitation during one of our boot camps. So, the best part about all of this is that you're taking these and you're going to get to actually use them. You're not just doing this to put them in a binder and put them on a shelf and never touch them again. So I was able to use this with our Washington County Health Coalition that I co-chair with another community champion, TR Dudley, that is actually also in our town and in my cohort. And so together we were able to facilitate these intake forms, and it's really helpful. And a matter of fact, I've done it multiple times. Just recently, last Monday, I did a similar intake form, and it was about celebrating our successes. We wanted to take the time to celebrate our successes, because I just been hearing a lot through the grapevine. We're all very tuned into our communities, and that's why we're kind of in our positions. And so, we hear things through, was it Chinjia? I heard you talking about your community calendar, or was it might have been somebody else, but I heard you talking about your community calendar. I think we all have something similar, probably informal or formal. And I've been hearing a lot of amazing things, and I wanted us to all, because it's a rare occasion we're all in one place. So I wanted us all, while we were sitting down for 30 minutes together, to talk about success. what success we had recently and what we pictured success as long-term, so that we could get that big picture of where we are and where we're going. And actually, I feel it's super important. I also come from an education background. If you don't stop and celebrate and recognize success, people start getting depressed and feel like all their work is for nothing, and you got to do it. So that's kind of what I was able to do using some of these facilitations.
How does the intake form specifically kind of help you design that?
Okay, so rational and experiential aim, I think I kind of just touched on that, but not, very directly. I wanted people to feel when they left that was very important part of that facilitation, was what did I, what was the rational aim and the experiential aim. I wanted people to feel that we were making progress in our community. Okay, so taking that on was essential. And then when we go from that and we talk about rational aim, I wanted people to be able to walk away with 3 hard facts of 3 things, 3 successes that they can recognize and take to their organizations when they left our meeting Monday. They can say, Washington County Memorial Hospital has directly, actually, the Health Coalition directly reduced overdose deaths in our community. I was able to bring that data to the table. And so that was important. I wanted them to walk away with some hard facts. And I knew that coming to that meeting with hard facts was also essential. So looking at my mandala for my community joint partners, I knew some of them needed that data, and I was able to bring that as part of the successes I brought. I guess what I'm trying to think, what else, Karin, could I add for that? I'm dragging behind today. I haven't had enough coffee.
That's okay. What part of the intake or brainstorming form was the most challenging for you?
Oh, probably for me, I'm an inspiring yellow. I always struggle to just stick to my facilitation period. I'm a talker, and that's trying to keep to that and stick to my agenda, and know that if I do, I'm going to be able to keep things focused. I myself am not a very focused individual. And so I need these kinds of tools to be a facilitator, to be an impactful facilitator. And that's personal self-reflection, but that's, you've got to have these tools, and I use these tools to keep myself focused. So that's definitely one of the most challenging. I'm trying to pull up another facilitation that Ambrisha, she couldn't be with us today, but she asked me to share a very specific facilitation with you all. And I had it pulled up and my internet crashed, actually. So actually not internet, my Chrome crashed. So that's why I stayed on Zoom, but it crashed. I wanted to share it with you. So while I pull that up, Karin, is there anything else while I pull that up? Here it is. Okay. So, that was one that I did recently, but the one that Ambrisha wanted me to share with you all was one that I did with some other members of my cohort as part of a boot camp. And this would have been May 19th of this time last year. So I did this one. And we were doing it on coordinating and promoting resources to the community. So I did this with with Kasanya and Shirley, who are in my cohort, and we worked on it actually quite a bit outside of the boot camp. So we had a couple of meetings outside of our boot camps to go through this and work the three of us as peers to like, okay, what do we need to be asking so that we get to that rational and experiential aim? And we ended up coming up with and changing, I think, the wording of our topic about a dozen times, and because the words matter. So it's, we wanted, our topic ended up being coordinate and promote resources to the community.
Hang on just a second. Kelly, can you share your screen so we can see it?
I think so. Let me, oh, here it is. I was going to say, I was like, I don't see the button. Here it is. Okay. Yeah.
Awesome.
So here is for better or for worse. Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. This is for better or for worse, what Shirley, Cassania, and I put together, working together. And I did use this because we came up with our topic based upon what I was working with our health coalition on a year ago. Shirley was brand new. She had taken over for someone else. Cassania was wanting to do something similar, but I was kind of ready to do this with my health coalition at that moment. So that's how we came up with our topic. And so I would highly recommend that to pick your topic. If you do they get a choice of topic, or are you guys picking for them?
I think we're going to have 3 options.
Okay.
So we don't spend too much time thinking about the topic and then not enough time practicing.
That's probably good. But we had the same kind of supports you guys are getting right now. We were at the exact same place you are right now with how well we, understood the material and our, conversations that matter. And so our rational aim, ended up being, so these are examples that we received. But if we go down here, okay, maybe we didn't fill that part in. Where'd it go? Okay. So we did end up, okay. Yeah. So I was getting a little lost. So we do have a rational experiential aim for everything here. So you see our ORID that we developed as part of our agenda, and we have an irrational and experiential aim for each part, getting to know each other, getting comfortable in our setting. That's for our first 15 minutes, those introductions, just what we did now. And we, I say we did the exact same thing at this meeting I just had. It's essential that we all get comfortable in the space. And then setting the stage, identifying a common purpose, and then experiencing unity through that common purpose. We all of the community partners that existed at my health coalition meeting, we are all responsible one way or another for connecting people in need with resources. Okay. And so having those tools was an essential rational aim at identifying that common purpose that we all needed a resource tool to use was important. And then that community conversation, identifying resources, and then having the experience of being more knowledgeable about community resources. I can say from doing this facilitation that everyone walked away with knowing, hey, I didn't know we had that service here. Everybody walked away with at least one of those because we identified and worked together to identify different groups for our community resources. And then we also, in reporting out, debrief, and closing, we did some action planning. We ended up with clear goals for developing a resource guide, making sure that it met standards. And we had multiple people taking ownership of it, which is always important to me because I tend to I end up taking over. And so very much these facilitations are essential for me and my personality to make sure that I am not the doer, but the facilitator. I end up being the doer of everything and wanting, and feeling crazy when I'm not getting things done because I have too much on my plate. So these facilitations are essential if you are in that position of someone who is always the doer at your organization, who is always the community doer, and you are wanting to share the work and get others involved so that it's sustainable.
And I think, Kelly, if I can pause you, that a key word right there, the facilitation really makes your efforts of what you're doing through this funding sustainable to live past the funding period. And so that's really our higher picture that you're looking for. The other thing I want to just, if you want to scroll up a little bit, notice that there's a rational experiential aim on each one of those levels. It's good to keep in mind, why are we doing, what's the purpose of that? And, thinking about the different people that are sitting around your table. That might be part of it too, is the rational aim is to really understand what type of thinkers we have here, going back to what we talked about earlier. And then what do we want them to experience as a result of doing that? Being very intentional about every single minute on your agenda. And you can do that by really thinking through the rational experiential aim. And in the chat, I said, it's not overthought. It's not too big of a rational aim. It doesn't have to be like this wonderful, great big statement. It's really, what do you want them to know, understand, or decide? Answer that question and put that down in there. And it keeps those guardrails so you aren't going too big. Thanks.
Yeah. So, and the script was essential for that. So here we have, we developed our materials. I developed a pretty basic, worksheet so that we had something to kind of keep us organized. The script was a big part of, the facilitation. We had it split into housing and food. We had the people we knew were participating because we got to test this out on our cohort. So that's the names of people in our cohort you see there. So, and that was important. We had everything planned. So just like Angie, just said, everything is intentional. I intentionally had Chase and Karin in my group. I intentionally, made sure that things were spread out, that, I had the directions done ahead of time so that, I was able to make sure things were clear. All of these, everything is intentional. And that personally keeps me on the straight and narrow, and keeps things moving. So.
Thank you, Kelly. Do any of the champions have questions for Kelly?
Kelly, I just messaged you in the chat. Can I have this?
Absolutely.
I have a call next week we are actually creating an Allen Parish Healthy Coalition from my action planning workshop that I had last month. So this will definitely help me and the two ladies that are in my smaller group that came out of my action planning. This will help me totally guide the Zoom call next week.
Let me see if maybe I can, I'm going to see what my shares. Oh, it's public. Perfect. I'm just going to pop this link into the chat and anyone that wants it can have it. So I can't, it is not going to be, Angie at, quality, but it is definitely something that me and my cohort and I, we worked really hard on. So you guys are more than welcome to it. Everything that's there, and that I believe will include the links to the documents there. And I will say this, I'm so glad, Ken, that you guys are doing, forming these health coalitions, because part of my job here at my hospital is grant writing. And almost daily, I'm coming across new grants where That's if you want this grant, you have to apply for it as a health coalition. You know, you might be the lead applicant as your health system, but they want you to be applying as a health coalition. They want groups from your community to be applying for grants, not just your organization. So I come across these pretty regularly. So if you don't already have a health coalition formed in your area, I highly recommend it. And this program is perfect for that if it isn't already doing that for you.
Thank you.
No problem.
I may reach out to you between now and then.
Absolutely.
So that is where we're together is better. And this is one of the reasons why you're in a cohort of learning together, is because people are creating things. And I'll just caution you, when she shares this is a Google Doc. So make sure you make a copy of it so you don't destroy her work and work over the top of it. And if you need help on that, any one of us from the center or myself can help you do that. But just make sure you make a copy and don't like steal their work totally. And
I'm going to go ahead and make my own copy and download it as is, just in case that does happen now that you mention it. So
I've shared plenty of Google Docs knowing that can happen pretty easily. So just do yourself a favor and just make a copy, go up to the right or to the left-hand corner where it says file, make a copy, and then you can play with it.
I'll share my screen again real quick and so show you guys. So if you don't know how, you can just go over here to file, and yeah, you can do make a copy, or you could also download it as a Word doc to have your own copy of it as well.
Yep. So there you go. Together is better. And this is a different community, a different setting. So make sure it's yours. And so it's kind of like that skeleton that we talked about earlier. You have a skeleton to work with, and just to adjust it as can be. So thanks, Kelly, for your generosity and sharing. And
no problem.
That's why examples in this type of learning is here. So let's just wrap up real quick. What's one image or thing that just is standing out to you? Let's just do a quick go around, and we'll start with Kathy, Lanaya, and Kimberly. One image or a thing that just standing out to you? Conversation.
Standing out from all of this.
Yep.
Inspired.
Okay. Lanaya, Kimberly, and Tiffin.
I would say confident.
Okay. Kimberly, Tiffin, and Rachel.
A lot of things. It's kind of speaking to the same thing from the past training, which it kind of gets almost not second nature, but it's getting more familiar each time.
Awesome. Thank you. Tiffin, Rachel, Megan.
I'll just kind of piggyback on Kimberly there. I would agree. It's kind of that repetition. The more times you hear it, the more times you do it, the more it becomes second nature. So sometimes you hear it just slightly different, or a light bulb comes on and it just makes more sense, or it simplifies it in a little different way. So I would say that's kind of what I'm taking away today.
All right, Rachel, Megan, Jamie.
Yeah, I like the review of the aims, and also the intake form, how, it really is just a great resource for us to be able to stay organized in our meeting and just to prepare. And the more prepared we are, the less anxiety we have. I know that's how I am in front of a meeting and in front of people. So it really just helps us to be as prepared as possible.
All right, thank you, Rachel. Megan, actually, Jamie, I've got you in as one of your center staff. So we'll go Megan, Gwendolyn, and Tangia.
I'm newer to the role, so I'm a little behind everybody. So this was a lot of information that I didn't already kind of know, kind of thing. So it was real helpful.
All right, Gwendolyn, Tangia, and Diane.
It just helps to kind of keep more focused on the goal of what has been presented before us. And I'm in the process of the data course. So it
Okay.
just keeps me focused.
Yes, absolutely. Tanjaya, Diane, and Kelly.
What stood out for me was the brainstorming and the prep work that has to go into it.
Thank you. Diane and Kelly. There you are.
Sorry, I was on mute. I enjoyed the review and it was helpful. And tomorrow's my first team meeting with our first group. And I think Kelly sharing that may give us some ideas for our meeting tomorrow, or maybe I can help with that. But thank you.
No, I'm glad that it helped. So I guess my big takeaway is it was an excellent review. You know, it reminds me that we're all in this kind of together too. You know, we have communities all over the place, and right now I'm doing the Delta Leadership Institute also, and I can tell you this, that the Delta needs these kinds of healthcare leaders for sure. I'm hearing about it regularly, so thank you.
Yeah.
And I hope that, you know, you guys can use what I shared and that it helps y'all.
Thank you, Kelly. So let's think about that. What are some other things? Obviously, Kelly sharing this was very helpful. What else did you find helpful today? Some of you mentioned some things, but let's just give voice to a few things.
I found that the review of a lot of things, when I saw the brainstorming format intake form come up, I was like, here we go again. Because I'll be honest, because the 2020 cohorts, we did do that last year, May. So when she did it, was like, there we go. So it just kind of refreshed and kind of reminded me of what we were doing, how we were looking at the rational aim, going back into the hue life with our different personalities, the yellow, the greens, the blues, the reds, and all of that. So it was a refresher and a reminder of things. So it really was good. It kind of snapped us back together.
All right. It's probably good for Megan, who's just getting started out, to hear that the refresher is a necessary thing here as well. Where might you still have a little bit of confusion, that you're wanting a little bit of clarity on Thursday? Good job, Karen. No one's confused. It's okay if you might not have that exact answer right now, because you get another look at it day after tomorrow. So that's all good. But what's one insight or a couple of people's insights about why, you know, this designing, why we're having this design session? What new insight has come about from today's look at design?
I think it helps us to stay focused on the topic, on the rational aim. As the example that Karen did, like we can kind of keep giving different ideas, but sometimes it gets to be too big and it's too much for the time frame that we have. So it really does help us to stay on track and to focus on that specific goal and aim that we identified.
Thanks, Rachel. And so just leaving it with one thing that you might be taking away from the session. Let's put a couple voices to that question. What's one thing you're going to be taking away from today's session?
I'm going to allocate more than just a few days to facilitate any type of gathering, in person or Zoom. Next week, I do have, like I mentioned, I have that Zoom meeting. So I'm going to start on it today, getting details and getting this intake form customized to, I'm going to take Kelly's and customize it to what I'm doing it for it to fit next week.
And I might offer you some center staff to have a couple eyes on that if you want to have some. Am I on the right track?
That would be great.
Am I out of line in saying that, ladies?
No, feel free to send it.
No, I would love that.
Yep. And I just will end with this saying that we do this. We run our designs around the team, and we have people look at this and say, are we on target? Am I overcomplicating this? I mean, sometimes we're so close to it that we don't even know that we're missing the mark of what our folks need. And sometimes because it is maybe our wheelhouse, we're making it more complicated than our community partners might even be able to bring to the table. So just keep in mind, simpler is sometimes better, and leaving space for those true dynamic conversations to evolve. You don't have to have all the answers or have it all figured out. Trust the people that come to the room to bring some of that wisdom. So with that, I'm going to pause until Thursday and turn it over to the center staff to wrap us up.
And I don't think that we have a final slide that for today. We're going to show that on Thursday. That kind of outlines how you guys are going to be using the intake form with your small groups. Between Thursday and our June training, the continuation of this boot camp. So you guys will have a chance to dig into that learning yourself with real people who have different ways of thinking than you on topics that are relevant for the work that you guys are all doing, especially post community priority action planning. So we hope to see you Thursday. This is a mandatory training for cohort 21. And make sure that you are not joining on a cell phone because we are going to be working in Google Docs. So we want everybody to have access to be typing in there in breakout rooms with each other. Robbie, am I missing anything else?
No, I think we are set.
Okay. Until Thursday. Have a great couple days.
Thank you all. Bye.